Outside, the wind howled as if the Willamette River itself was roaring to swallow the city whole. The century-old windows of the Carter mansion rattled in their frames, flashing with white lightning that tore across the Oregon sky. I stood alone in the library, my hand resting on a worn leather journal. The towering shelves smelled of old wood and dust. This place was supposed to be a sanctuary. But tonight, every slow, deliberate footstep echoing down the dark hallway tightened my chest. "Uncle." Olivia's voice barely rose above a whisper trembling like the candlelight between us. "Leave the mansion now." Her small hand clutched my arm, ice cold. Her eyes never moved from the shadow at the far end of the corridor where those footsteps were drawing closer. Slow, steady, intentional. I didn't know what was happening yet, but in her gaze I saw real fear. Not fear of the storm. Fear of the people behind that darkness. Maybe you've never heard a story like this, but if you've ever felt the chill of betrayal from someone who shares your own blood, you'll understand. Sometimes the ones plotting to destroy you carry your family name. I couldn't turn away. I couldn't leave her here alone. Tonight I would learn exactly who I could trust and who deserved the ending they'd chosen for themselves. If this is the first time you've heard a story like this, stay with me until the end. And subscribe because there are truths out there you won't believe until you hear them. The Willamette River cut a silver line through Portland that night, its surface shimmering under the dim glow of the moon. From the top floor of the Carter mansion, I could see the city lights blinking in the distance, soft and far away, like they belonged to another world. I'd spent most of my 56 years in courtrooms fighting battles with words, logic, and patience, but after my heart surgery last spring, the doctors told me to slow down. My brother Victor told me to stop. He said the mansion would be the perfect place to recover quiet historic surrounded by nature. At first, I believed him. The Carter mansion had been in our family for generations, a sprawling estate with carved oak doors, stained glass windows, and enough empty rooms to lose yourself in. The kind of place where the walls held stories older than I was. But there was something else in those walls. A weight I couldn't name yet. That first night I wandered into the library, running my fingers along leather-bound volumes, whose spines were cracked with age. The air smelled faintly of cedar and dust. Somewhere, deep inside the house, the grandfather clock struck 10 each chime, echoing through the marble halls like a slow, deliberate warning. It should have been peaceful. It should have felt safe. And yet, a strange unease settled in my chest. Not from my heart, from instinct. Because just as the last chime faded, I heard it. A soft creak in the hallway, like someone was standing there perfectly still listening. I turned toward the hallway, the library door frame casting a narrow shadow across the floor. Nothing moved. No voice called out. Just the old pipes groaning in the walls, or at least that's what I told myself. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the breakfast room, turning the white tablecloth into a sheet of gold. Victor was already there, leaning back in his chair, coffee in hand. That smile again, too wide, too practiced. Across from him sat Olivia. 16 years old, her dark hair pulled into a loose braid sketchbook open beside her plate. She didn't look up at me right away, her pencil moving fast over the page. "Morning," Daniel Victor said, his voice warm enough for strangers, but cold underneath. "Sleep well." "Fine," I lied. Olivia glanced up, then meeting my eyes for the first time that day. There was something in her gaze, a flicker of caution, quickly hidden. Victor shifted the conversation to the mansion's history, its future potential. He spoke like a man pitching property to a buyer, not reminiscing with his brother. Every sentence had numbers in it, square footage, market value, renovations. I watched Olivia's hand pause over her sketchbook. Her eyes darted toward her uncle, then back to the page. She pressed harder with the pencil, the lead snapping in two. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just drawing, she was listening, and whatever she was hearing, it wasn't meant for me. After breakfast, Victor suggested we take a walk along the river path behind the mansion. The Willamette flowed slow and wide, the water catching shards of sunlight like broken glass. "I'm glad you came, Daniel," he said, keeping his hands in his coat pockets. "This place, it's too big for just me and Olivia. Feels right to have family here again." I nodded, though the words didn't land the way he thought they would. We hadn't spoken much in years, not since the fight over Dad's will. I'd gotten the house in Portland. He'd gotten the properties in Seattle. We'd both agreed it was fair. Or so I thought. Now, Victor kept talking about family legacy, shared responsibility, and what happens when we're gone. He made it sound like concern, but I've sat across from too many men in courtrooms not to hear the subtext. This wasn't about family, it was about assets. We stopped near an old stone bench moss creeping up its legs. Olivia was already there, sketchbook in her lap, pretending not to listen. "You've got a lot to think about these days," Victor said, his tone casual. "Your health, your future. Ever think about making changes? You know to your arrangements. Arrangements." The word felt heavier than the winter air. I met his eyes. "Everything's already taken care of." He smiled again. That same smile from the day I arrived. And for the first time, I knew I wasn't here to rest. I was here for a reason I hadn't figured out yet. That night, the rain came in sheets, drumming against the tall windows of the Carter mansion. The storm's howl masked most sounds, but not the ones inside. I'd settled into the library again, the fire burning low, a crime novel open in my lap. Somewhere above, a door clicked shut. Not slammed, clicked. Deliberate. I set the book aside. The sound came again, followed by soft footsteps. They weren't heading toward the stairs, they were pacing. I rose, moving to the library door. The hallway beyond was dim-lit only by the faint glow of the wall sconces. "Olivia," I called. No answer. I stepped out, the old floorboards creaking under my weight. The pacing stopped. Silence thickened the air. That's when I saw it, just barely a shadow slipping into the study across the hall. The door eased shut, slow and controlled. I crossed the hallway, my heartbeat loud in my ears. The study door was unlocked. I pushed it open, the hinges groaning. Empty. Only the desk lamp glowed, casting a pale light over stacks of papers. And on top of those papers, my legal will. The one locked in my suitcase when I arrived. Someone had been inside my room. Someone wanted me to know they'd found it. I closed the door, every instinct I'd honed in the courtroom screaming the same thing. This wasn't a warning. It was a message. I didn't sleep that night, not after finding my will on the study desk like a trophy. By morning, the storm had passed, but the mansion felt colder. I was pouring coffee in the kitchen when Olivia slipped in still, in her hoodie eyes darting to the doorway. She waited until I set the mug down. "Uncle Daniel," she whispered, "we need to talk, but not here." Her voice was tight, urgent. She led me out the side door, down the narrow path toward the old greenhouse at the edge of the property. The glass was fogged weeds curling over the brick floor, but it was away from the house, away from him. She checked over her shoulder before speaking again. "I heard Dad on the phone last night," she said. "He didn't know I was awake." My chest tightened. "What did you hear?" She hesitated, fingers twisting the edge of her sleeve. "He was talking about timing and insurance. He said once you were gone, everything would be easier." The word "gone" echoed in my head like the chimes of that clock. "Olivia, are you sure?" Her eyes brimmed with something between fear and guilt. "I'm not supposed to tell you. He said I'd regret it if I did." The cold inside me hardened into something sharper. Victor wasn't just circling the idea of my death, he was making plans. And now I knew I wasn't the only one in danger. I studied Olivia's face in the dim light of the greenhouse. Her voice had trembled, but her words had weight. Still, I'd spent decades knowing that in any fight over money, trust could be a weapon or a trap. "Olivia," I said quietly, "why are you telling me this?" She bit her lip. "Because you're the only one who ever listens to me. And I don't want you to get hurt." It should have been enough. But doubt doesn't disappear that easily. Back in the mansion, I watched her the rest of the morning. She avoided Victor's gaze, slipped out of rooms when he entered. Once, I caught her glancing toward my coffee cup before quickly looking away. Was that fear or something else? At lunch, Victor was all charm, asking about my plans for the week, suggesting we tour the upper balconies after dinner. His tone was light, but I could almost hear the clock ticking under each word. That afternoon, I went to my suite and unlocked my travel case. Inside, beneath my clothes, I placed a small audio recorder in my jacket pocket. If Olivia was telling the truth, I'd get proof. If she wasn't, I'd find that out too. As I stepped into the hallway, I saw her at the top of the stairs, gripping the banister. Our eyes met. She gave the smallest shake of her head, and I knew the test wasn't just mine. She was risking everything, too. The dining room of the Carter mansion was all polished oak and heavy chandeliers. A fire crackled at one end, casting gold light over the long table. Victor had gone all out: steaks, roasted vegetables, wine breathing in crystal decanters. Olivia sat 2 seats away from me, her gaze fixed on her plate. "Daniel," Victor said warmly, "you've been working too hard your whole life. Tonight you relax. No worries, no stress." His hand poured the wine into my glass without asking. A generous pour, too generous. I lifted it halfway, just enough to be polite, but kept my eyes on him. The recorder in my jacket felt like a stone against my ribs. "You'll love this," he continued. "Picked it up on a trip to Napa. Smooth finish, a little deceptive at first taste." He smirked at his own choice of words. Olivia's foot tapped under the table, sharp, quick. A signal. I set the glass down. Maybe later. Stomach's been uneasy all day. Victor's smile didn't falter, but his eyes cooled. Just a sip. For family. The room seemed to shrink around us. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner was suddenly too loud. Olivia shifted, knocking over her water glass. It spilled across the table, soaking Victor's sleeve. "Sorry," she said too loudly. For a second, all attention was on the mess. It was enough. I slid the wine glass just out of reach, and in that brief, chaotic moment I saw it. Victor's jaw tightened, his hand clench. This wasn't about hospitality. It was about timing. The mansion was silent by midnight. The storm had rolled back in wind, scraping against the old shutters. I sat in the library, lights low, pretending to read. Waiting. At exactly 12:17, floorboards creaked in the hallway. Slow, careful steps. I slid the recorder from my pocket, pressing it on. Victor's shadow appeared in the doorway. He didn't bother knocking. "Still awake, Daniel." His voice was smooth, but there was no warmth in it. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, thinking about tomorrow. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "That's good. You should make peace with things. Life's short." I let the words hang, especially when someone's trying to make it shorter. His smile froze. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back in my chair. "It means I know about the wine, and the calls, and the will you had no business reading." He laughed once, sharp. You've been listening to Olivia, haven't you? That girl doesn't know what she's talking about. Funny, I said. The recorder in my pocket says otherwise. For the first time, his mask slipped. His jaw worked, eyes flicking toward the window as if measuring the drop. You can't prove anything, he said, but his voice had lost its steady rhythm. Maybe not yet, I replied, standing, but by morning I will. The wind howled outside. Inside, the silence between us was louder. Victor's eyes narrowed, but his shoulders eased like he'd made a decision. You want the truth, Daniel Fine. You've been holding the family money hostage for years, acting like you're the only one who earned it. I did earn it, I said evenly. Every dollar. He stepped closer, the firelight from the library hearth catching the edge of his face. You think I care about your pride Olivia's college fund, the debts, none of it gets paid unless you're out of the picture. Permanently. Hearing it out loud was different. No more half hints, no more smiles hiding knives. That's your excuse for killing me, I asked. He didn't flinch. It's not an excuse, it's a solution. The recorder in my pocket caught every syllable. Olivia knows, I said. She's the one who warned me. For the first time, his expression cracked not with guilt, but with anger. That ungrateful little brat. He cut himself short, realizing he'd said too much. I stood closing the space between us until we were eye to eye. You just gave me everything I need, he smirked. You think the police will touch me. By the time they listen to that tape, you'll be gone. And accidents happen in houses this old. The air between us felt electric. One move from him and this would turn violent. But instead, he stepped back. See you at breakfast, Uncle. And just like that, he was gone, leaving the smell of cigar smoke and danger in the air. The rain had stopped by dawn, leaving the mansion wrapped in a damp, uneasy silence. I didn't sleep. I sat in my suite replaying Victor's confession over and over, each word sharpening my resolve. At 7:15, I went to the breakfast room. Empty, no Victor, no Olivia. The housekeeper, Mrs. Keene, shuffled in carrying a tray. Morning, Mr. Daniel. Thought you'd be with Miss Olivia. My gut tightened. Why would I be with her? Her brow furrowed. Victor said you two were going for a drive early. She left with him about half an hour ago. The coffee cup in my hand went cold. He had her. I didn't remember moving, but suddenly I was in the garage. The black Bentley was gone. Only the scent of exhaust and wet pavement remained. I called her phone, straight to voicemail. Victor's number, same thing. My mind raced. If he knew she'd warned me, she wasn't just leverage anymore. She was a loose end. I went back to my room, grabbed the recorder, and slipped it into my jacket. Then I checked the top drawer of my desk where I kept a small revolver untouched for years. It was still there, cold, heavy, reliable. For a moment, I just stood there breathing. Victor thought he was in control. But by taking Olivia, he'd made his biggest mistake yet. And I was done waiting for him to come to me. The small town of Ashford was just waking up when I hit the road. Fog clung to the hills, curling around the trees like smoke. I knew Victor's habits. He never took the main highway. Too many eyes. He'd go through the back roads past the old mill, then cut across Ashford Bridge toward the lake houses. The Bentley wasn't hard to spot. Black paint, chrome grille. Even in the mist, it glinted like a predator. I stayed 2 cars back, my old Ford blending with morning traffic. Every turn he made, I mirrored. At a red light, I caught a glimpse of Olivia in the passenger seat. Her face, pale eyes locked forward. No crying. No waving for help. That told me Victor had her scared enough to stay still. The light turned green. He accelerated, so did I. The road narrowed into a 2-lane strip hugging the river. Victor pushed the Bentley faster, tires hissing on wet asphalt. I kept my distance, close enough not to lose him, far enough not to spook him. Then, without warning, he veered off onto a gravel path leading into the woods. No houses, no traffic, just pine trees and shadows. My pulse hammered. Whatever he planned to do, it was going to happen out there. I killed my headlights and followed tires crunching softly over gravel. And for the first time, I wondered, was I chasing him into a trap? Or was he leading me exactly where he wanted? The gravel path ended at a clearing ringed by towering pines. Victor's Bentley sat idling, exhaust curling into the cold morning air. I parked my Ford behind a cluster of trees, cut the engine, and stepped out. The forest floor was wet, each step sinking into damp earth. I could hear Victor's voice, low, sharp. "Get out, Olivia." She hesitated. Now he barked. I moved closer, keeping to the shadows. My hand tightened around the revolver in my pocket. Victor opened the trunk and pulled out a duffel bag. Heavy, metallic clinks inside. "Walk to the edge," he ordered. That's when I saw it beyond the trees, the river's drop-off. Fast current, jagged rocks below. My pulse surged. He wasn't just scaring her, he was going to make her disappear. "Victor." My voice cut through the mist like a whip. He froze, turned slowly, a smile forming. "Knew you'd follow." Olivia ran toward me, but Victor's hand shot out, grabbing her arm. I drew the revolver, let her go. He laughed low, mocking. "What are you gonna do? Daniel, shoot your own brother." The moment stretched. The wind hissed through the pines. Then Olivia did something neither of us expected. She stomped on his foot and twisted free, sprinting to me. Victor lunged, but I stepped between them, gun leveled. "Try it," I said, voice steady. And for the first time, he backed down. Victor's smile didn't fade when he stepped back. It widened. "You really think it ends here, Daniel?" His voice was calm, too calm. I kept the gun steady. "It ends when you walk away and never come near her again." He chuckled. "Oh, I'm not talking about Olivia." My stomach tightened. "She's just collateral. You were the real prize. But if I can't take you out here..." He glanced over my shoulder toward the road. "Someone else will." The hair on the back of my neck prickled. From the tree line, a black SUV rolled into the clearing, slow, deliberate. 2 men inside. Windows tinted. Victor's voice dropped to a whisper meant only for me. "They've been waiting since last night. You walk away with her now, and maybe they let you get to the car before he made a gun shape with his hand. You vanish." Olivia's grip tightened on my coat. Her eyes darted from the SUV to me. "Uncle," she whispered. I stepped back toward the cover of the pines, keeping my weapon aimed at Victor. The SUV stopped. Doors opened. 2 men stepped out, moving like professionals, coordinated, silent. Victor's grin was pure venom. "Family's messy, huh?" I whispered to Olivia. "When I say run, run to the riverbank. Don't stop." She nodded, eyes wide. And in that instant, I knew the real fight wasn't about Victor anymore. It was about making sure she lived through what was coming next. The 2 men from the SUV closed in measured steps, no wasted motion. Victor stayed where he was, hands in his pockets, watching like a man enjoying his own chess game. I whispered to Olivia now. She bolted toward the riverbank, her small frame darting between trees. The men shifted, one moving to intercept. I fired once into the air loud enough to freeze them mid-step. Then I moved, putting my body between them and her. "Walk away," I warned. The bigger one smirked, pulling a knife. "Fine." I ducked behind a pine as he lunged, the blade sinking into bark instead of flesh. I grabbed his wrist, twisted hard, felt the knife drop into my hand. The second man came from the side, but a loose patch of wet earth sent him sliding toward the edge. One push was all it took. He hit the water with a splash, fighting the current. By the time I turned back, Victor was running toward the Bentley. But he didn't make it far. Red and blue lights flashed through the trees. Sheriff's cruisers skidded into the clearing. "Hands up, Victor." He froze, his smirk gone. I ran to Olivia, pulling her into my arms. "It's over," I told her, even though I knew. Some battles don't end that easily. 2 days later, the chaos felt like a distant nightmare. Olivia and I sat on the porch of my lakeside cabin in Montana, the late afternoon sun spilling gold across the water. She was wrapped in a blanket, sipping cocoa. I watched her eyes, still alert, still scanning the tree line. "You're safe now," I told her. She nodded, but didn't look entirely convinced. In truth, neither was I. Victor was in custody, but men like him don't just fade away. They plot. They wait. I'd spent my whole life believing family meant protection. That blood was unbreakable. But that day in the clearing taught me something. Harsh family can also be the sharpest knife in your back. Olivia leaned her head against my shoulder. "Uncle, you won right." I took a long breath, the lake's surface rippling in the wind. "Winning isn't always about hurting the ones who hurt you," I said quietly. "Sometimes it's making sure they can never hurt you again." She didn't answer, but her hand found mine. We stayed like that until the sky turned crimson. Before we went inside, I glanced toward the horizon, half expecting to see a shadow, a figure watching. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of the lake. I'm telling you this because if you've ever trusted someone and been betrayed, you know the burn it leaves. You know why I couldn't just walk away. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real revenge, real choices, stick around. Because sometimes survival is the sweetest revenge.